Ciphers of Time, Awakening the Legacy. Chapter 15, The Boss, The Teacher. Shantanu paced back and forth, his every step echoing off the bare walls, his jaw clenched tight, a storm brewing behind his furrowed brows. He had just begun to accept the unfamiliar room as a temporary refuge when the door creaked, revealing Malini's slender figure against the backlight of the setting sun. "Shantanu," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, but it was enough to make him whirl around, anger flashing in his eyes. "Malini, how dare you show your face here?" Shantanu's voice was a thunderclap, breaking the strained silence that had settled between him and Manu. "Do you have any idea what you've put us through?" "I know you're furious," Malini said, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. Even in the dim light, the remorse in her eyes was palpable. "I'm sorry for how everything happened, but we had no choice. Vishwa's men were closing in. We had to move quickly." "Quickly? You mean abduct us and lock us in a cage?" Shantanu spat the word out like a curse. "Shantanu, please." Her apology hung in the air, earnest and heavy with unspoken fear. "I tried to warn you not to go on this mission. I knew the dangers." Manu, who had been silently watching, finally spoke up. "Why do you get to decide what happens to us? The only reason I see for this kidnapping is to experiment on us and steal our powers." Malini faced Manu, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. "Manu, I understand how it looks, but you must believe me. There's more at stake here than you realize." "I don't care what is at stake. That doesn't give you the right to play God with our lives. We won't be a part of your game." Manu's voice was skeptical as he echoed his thoughts. "It's not what you think," Malini stuttered, her resolve wavering under Manu's piercing gaze. But she stood firm, her next words carrying the weight of untold secrets. "This is much bigger than you can imagine, and time is running out." "Time?" Manu's stance softened slightly, the curiosity that always simmered beneath his composed exterior surfacing despite his frustration. "Time," Malini affirmed, a solemn nod accompanying her assertion. "Vishwa is searching for something dangerous through you both, something that could threaten everything. That's why I brought you here." Shantanu stopped pacing, his fiery energy giving way to a begrudging attention. Manu's arms remained crossed over his chest, his mind undoubtedly racing to piece together the fragmented truths laid before them. A storm was brewing in Malini's usually calm eyes as she faced Shantanu's angry gaze. "Shantanu, please," Malini cut in, her hands reaching out, then retreating, unsure if they would be welcomed. "I apologize again and again. I am not here in the capacity you believe. I am—" She hesitated, her voice dwindling to a whisper fraught with the gravity of what she was about to disclose. "I am a disciple of Guru Kripa." Manu scoffed at her revelation, the sarcasm dripping from his words like venom. "Another guru like Vishwa, you say? Claiming good intentions, just like him. But how can we trust you? What's to say you're not the ones taking advantage of our situation?" His arms unfolded in a dismissive gesture, his eyes glinting with bitter mirth. The shadows cast by the failing light played on Manu's face, accentuating the deep lines of doubt and frustration that had taken residence there. Malini, despite the scorn thrown her way, maintained an unwavering stance, ready to weather the storm of his disbelief. Her palms softly pressed together in a silent plea, her voice attempting to soothe the emotions swirling around. "Shantanu, Manu," she began, each word measured and deliberate. "I understand your anger and confusion, and for that I am truly sorry." Her gaze, unwavering, sought Shantanu's, imploring him to see past his fury. "Kripacharya himself will reveal everything," she continued, her tone infused with reverence. "The reasons behind your trials, the purpose of your gifts. He will clarify all. Please do not judge me harshly. I am but a humble servant carrying out his bidding." She stepped closer to the brothers, her hands unfolding as if to offer them the knowledge they so desperately sought. "You must understand the magnitude of who Kripa is," Malini urged, her words painting the portrait of an immortal sage. "Kripacharya is the venerable guru of the Kuru lineage, the esteemed teacher of both Pandavas and Kauravas during the Mahabharata era. He is one of the rare souls who emerged alive from the carnage of the Kurukshetra war. As she spoke, the air seemed to hum with the weight of history, the echoes of an epic age resonating through her tale. He continued to guide kings and princes, like Parikshit and Janamejaya, through turbulent times. He has been graced by the gods with the gift of immortality. Shantanu's clenched fists gradually relaxed at his sides, the rigidity in his shoulders easing as the gravity of Malini's revelations settled upon him. Though skepticism still lingered in the furrow of his brow, the raw edge of his initial wrath had dulled, giving way to a cautious curiosity about this man who held time in his grasp. Immortality, Shantanu echoed, the word hanging between them like a sacred promise, or perhaps an eternal curse. Flashes of his childhood come rushing back to Manu, like a flood breaking through a dam. Memories of his mother's soothing voice weaving tales of the great Indian epic Mahabharat into every bedtime story. She would always refer to the wise and noble Kripacharya, a name now ingrained in his mind. He also delved deep into the scriptures and texts of Mahabharat during his academic research. The Manu who lived in London would never have believed the words spoken by Malini. But the Manu trapped in this wooden cell had experienced too much on the journey from London to this room. Every step was filled with unbelievable events and potentially fatal situations, causing Manu to put his trust in her words, which were now their only hope. After all, Kripacharya was revered as a great guru. The air of the chamber was thick with a sense of timelessness, an amalgam of must and incense wrapping around Manu and Shantanu as Malini guided them. Through the dimly lit corridor, flickering flames from wall-mounted torches cast elongated shadows that danced along the walls, breathing life into age-old carvings. The brothers' footsteps echoed, their rhythm syncing with the pulsating energy of the place. Finally, they came to a halt before an ornate door carved with intricate patterns depicting cosmic battles and celestial beings. Malini pushed the door open, and they stepped into a room where the very atmosphere seemed to vibrate with wisdom accumulated over eons. There, seated on a low dais, was the old man that they had seen earlier in the day. Several thoughts raced through their minds as brothers stared dumbfounded at Kripacharya. Could it be true? Was the legend of his immortality real? Manu's entire body froze in awe and terror at the realization that they could be in the presence of a being who has lived for centuries. Manu, Shantanu, Kripa's voice resonated, each syllable laced with the power of ages. I am Kripa, and I have waited long for this moment. Vishwa has set a dangerous game in motion, Kripa continued, his gaze never wavering. He seeks through you an ancient force, one that could unravel the very fabric of existence. You are not mere pawns. Your roles are far greater than you've been led to believe. Manu's mind raced, trying to piece together fragments of conversations, memories, and the surreal events of recent days. Shantanu shifted beside him, struggling to grasp the magnitude of Kripa's words. Shantanu finally spoke up, his curiosity piqued. And how exactly are we involved? What does Vishwa want with us? Kripa's expression remained impassive, but his eyes held a depth of sorrow for what was to come. All will be explained in due time. For now, know this. The path you walk is perilous, but it is also one of great importance. The choices you make bear the weight of countless lives. Shantanu's jaw tightened, his frustration palpable. This is all overwhelming, he admitted, his voice threaded with the vulnerability that lay beneath his brash exterior. Indeed, Kripa acknowledged with a nod, his eyes softening just enough to offer solace amid the storm of revelations. But fear not, for you are not alone in this. We shall navigate these troubled waters together. The echoes of Kripa's assurance hung in the stillness, offering a beacon of hope to the bewildered brothers. Vishwa cloaked himself in the guise of a Swamiji and made sure your paths crossed, Kripa explained. Even when you initially refused his help, he patiently waited for you at the place in the forest. He gestured with a hand, his fingers sketching unseen patterns in the air. Under the pretense of offering relief, he gained your trust. He then extracted every detail about the cities you possessed during the training process. Manu's hands clenched unconsciously into fists, the knuckles blanching white. And why would Vishwa go through such lengths, he interjected, his voice brittle with pent-up frustration. Why weave such an intricate web of lies? Because, Kripa continued unfaltering, what you disclose to him unknowingly is the key his Guruji, the master he serves, has been yearning to find for centuries. The knowledge of that particular location, combined with your unique abilities, holds the power to unleash or restrain a force capable of shaping or shattering the world. A silence descended, heavy as the stone walls encasing them. It was shattered by Manu's sudden, ragged shout, filled with the rawness of betrayal and confusion. But why us? Why drag us into this twisted game? What have we done to deserve this endless charade? Trust is the hardest to build when it has been broken, Kripa said softly, stepping closer. But I ask you to look beyond the immediate shadows of doubt. Your journey has brought you here for a reason. Manu's fist clenched and unclenched, the muscles in his jaw working as he fought to regain composure. Kripa watched the struggle within the young man, his own expression serene yet marked by empathy. Manu, Kripa began, his voice a gentle balm. The threads of fate weave complex patterns, and yours are interlaced with a purpose far greater than you can fathom at this moment. Manu's eyes, still brimming with a storm of emotions, met Kripa's steady gaze. There was a quiet strength in the old sage's eyes, one that seemed to reach out and steady Manu's turbulent thoughts. Chosen ones, Kripa continued, each word measured and imbued with a conviction, are not selected for their willingness, but for their capability. You and Shantanu have within you a dormant power, a legacy that is only beginning to awaken. This is no mere chance, it is destiny calling you to rise. Vishwa paced the empty halls, his footsteps echoing off the cold stone walls. He had sent all his disciples on a desperate chase for the brothers. The once vibrant ashram now lay in desolate stillness, its bustling energy replaced by an ominous void. Sweat dripped from his brow as he frantically wiped it away, heart pounding against his chest like a trapped bird trying to escape. Unanswered questions gnawed at his mind like a relentless hunger. Who snatched the brothers away from his trap? The deafening silence only added to his torment, leaving him with nothing but his own frantic thoughts. Vishwa's hands trembled as he clutched at the fabric of his kurta, the cotton material crumpling under the grip of his fear. There was no one to witness his unraveling, no one to see the mighty orchestrator of plans reduced to a man haunted by the specter of his Guruji's wrath. Alone in the vastness of the ashram, Vishwa was a figure diminished, not by stature, but by the weight of uncertainty that clung to him like a shroud. Vishwa's gaze, drawn to the winding path leading to the ashram's entrance, as a black car rolled to a halt. His breath hitched, a cold sweat breaking over him like a sudden monsoon downpour. The stillness of the surrounding trees belied the turmoil within him. They stood as silent sentinels to his impending doom. Vishwa spots a car pulling up at the entrance of the ashram, visible through a long and narrow path from the center. As his eyes land on it, he breaks out into a cold sweat. Fear courses through his body, causing him to tremble as he rushes towards the entrance. He falls to his knees at the door of the car just as a guard opens it. First sentence coming out of Guruji as he gets out of the car. "Where are they?" His voice sharp and commanding like the crack of a whip. His tone cut through the silence that had swallowed the ashram whole, a silence that now seemed to amplify his displeasure. "When are we leaving to the place?" The question hung heavy in the air as Guruji strode forward, his presence filling the void left by the absent disciples. "Why is the ashram empty?" Guruji continued, his words rebounding off the walls, with my words getting echoed back to me. Vishwa trailed behind, each step a stagger under the burden of accountability. The hollow ring of Guruji's voice served as a grim reminder of the task at hand, and Vishwa knew that excuses would not suffice. The absence of Manu and Shantanu was a gap that could not be bridged by mere words, and Vishwa sensed the precipice upon which he now teetered, a fall from grace that loomed inevitable in the face of Guruji's unspoken wrath. Halting abruptly, Guruji turned on his heel, his eyes two dark wells boring into Vishwa's very soul. The air crackled with an unspoken ultimatum, and it was in this moment that Vishwa knew he stood at the edge of an abyss. With a reverence born of fear, he sank to the ground, his forehead brushing the dust at Guruji's feet in silent supplication. "Guruji, Guruji," his voice trembled, His hands, shaking as though seized by some unseen chill, clung to Guruji's sandals. The leather cracked and warm against his skin, a stark contrast to the cold sweat beating on his brow. The word Guruji became a mantra, a desperate plea repeated with the fervor of a man who sensed the specter of his end looming over him. His throat constricted, the syllables escaping his lips in ragged gasps, betraying the terror that clawed at his insides.